prwebpodcast.com, visiting with newsmakers and industry experts.
Hello, this is Aaron at prwebpodcast.com. I'm very glad to be joined today by Dr. Jerome Fryer, chiropractor. Dr. Fryer, how are you doing today?
Great.
Good to hear. Thank you for joining me. And let's start first by having you tell us just a little bit about yourself for our listeners.
Well, first of all, Aaron, I just want to thank you for your interest in this. I am a private practitioner working in a integrated health center and primarily looking at helping people with their pain primarily.
And your latest press release, Dr. Fryer, is discussing a recent study about a seated exercise and its varying degrees of clinical success in private practice. So first tell us a little bit about this exercise and why it is effective.
The dawn of this exercise came in 1998 when I was in a lecture and sitting in a sea of students, and at the same time we were talking about what is detrimental to the spine, static loads, for instance. So I basically came up with this exercise by listening to my professor and decided to just basically relieve the pressure off of the lumbar spine, which is something that we do naturally. So what I did was, because I was still a student, I decided to take that into the clinical setting, and between the years of 2000 when I began practice up until currently, I began to introduce it, and I found in the early stages that people responded very well, meaning that I designed this exercise around people that had prolonged periods of sitting and experienced pain around the act of sitting. And I found that people continuously improved, and I decided it was my duty as a practitioner to share this with the rest of the world. So at that point in time, I knew that the scientific community needed something more than just a sketch, so I proceeded to attempt to measure this exercise.
And how exactly did you do that? Tell us about the techniques that you used when obtaining the data for the study.
Well, first of all, I thought that after doing the exercise that it would make sense why people are finding a positive effect associated with it would be because of the increase in spinal height. And with that, spinal height likely comes from disc height, intervertebral disc height. So there are spaces between the bones called the intervertebral discs that constitute about a third of the spine. And these discs are very dynamic. So I thought with the research that I was doing that this exercise would likely lengthen the spine. So I simply measured people's heights before and after the exercise, and people's heights went up. So that supported my hypothesis. In order to get the resolution that was needed to measure these fine changes in people's heights, I needed an instrument that would record something as accurate as I could possibly find. So I found the stadiometer that actually had a resolution of 0.1 millimeter, and it was because of those fine changes that I could detect, I was able to show a significant change. I then took my findings of this preliminary study, and currently I'm writing up my follow-up paper using the stadiometer alongside with very similar protocols with upright MRI. And those numbers are currently being analyzed, and the results are looking very promising.
And Dr. Fryer, why is height important in this study?
Well, we know that at the later aspects of our life, height tends to decrease in the spine. And there's great excitement about watching children grow, for instance, but I think it's even more important to watch the slow descent in the latter years of our lives, because we know that the discs have a tendency in the spine to dry out, and that is also another sign of degeneration. So it's the careful descent that I think needs to be paid more closely attention to, and that will give us some better understandings on how possibly we can keep people taller.
And so tell us about some of your ultimate goals that you have with this research study.
Well, I think we need to be better at early diagnostic clues in the pursuit of understanding more about osteoarthritis, in particular degenerative disc disease. We know that disc height loss is usually the precursor to degenerative arthritis in the spine. And I think we need to understand these careful changes of disc height loss more early in someone's life so we could have better therapeutic strategies to cope.
And Dr. Fryer, in case any of our listeners have any additional questions for you or would like to learn more about your study, how can they get a hold of you?
Well, they can contact me through my website. It's drfryer.ca. And if they have any questions, they can email me directly, and that would be fine.
And that's Fryer, like Fryer, correct?
Correct.
All righty. Well, it's a real pleasure podcasting with you today, and I thank you for coming on and telling us about your recent study and work, and I wish you the best of luck in the future and hope to speak with you again very soon.
Thank you very much, Aaron.
Produced by PR Web, the online visibility company. This work is released under Creative Commons Sampling Plus 1.0. Under this license, you are permitted to sample, mash up, or otherwise creatively transform this work for commercial or non-commercial purposes, provided that proper attribution is made. For more information, please visit prweb.com.